going on, everybody? Welcome to the final Dose Media live stream of the beautiful year 2022. Week 17 main slate, Joey. Final day of the year. How you feeling?
Feeling good. Excited for tomorrow's slate. More so on a prize picks wave because we got in so much good value.
Bro,
And
this
I,
week
and I
was
got
crazy.
and I got so many plays riding on tomorrow's slate. And pretty much all of the plays that we posted in our Discord have been bumped. So make sure you join that. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're watching this live or on replay. Helps us out a ton. We're almost at 750. So growing pretty good right now. And just excited for this slate and excited to talk some DraftKings and some props with you.
Yeah, definitely excited to look at DraftKings for the first time this week since we've just been locked in on prize picks like fucking hounds all week, just value, just scooping it up everywhere. And I feel like we did a pretty good job.
If we don't get rich tomorrow,
bro,
well, that's gonna be it's gonna be a great way to bring in the new year.
Yes, dude, I've got like multiple 6-leg slips where all of them are good lines. Like, I'm just like, please, God, one time tomorrow, one time. But today we're here to talk about DraftKings, the week 17 main slate, second to last week of the year, 13 games, a lot of quarterback changes this week, a lot of stuff that's going to be up in the air. We have teams potentially resting players, teams we don't know what their motivation will be, and it's interesting. A lot of strategy for this slate.
Yeah, I don't think there's too many spots to worry about just in terms of motivation and whatnot. I think every team is pretty motivated, at least this week, besides the Texans. So wouldn't really factor any of that too much into the process behind DraftKings or, picking what props you're going to play on prize picks or underdog or anything like that. Everybody has something to play for, especially when it comes to seeding and how there's only one team that gets a bye now in the NFL. Obviously they made that change last year or 2 years ago or whatever. And yeah, so not too many spots to worry about on that front. Overall, not the best slate. We talked about it on the Wednesday podcast. Not too interesting of a slate, in my opinion. Not too many good games that I'm excited about. Obviously, we have a standout game in Detroit and Chicago, especially on the Detroit side of the ball. We'll definitely be talking a ton about the Lions players. Other than that, definitely not the best slate in the world, and that's kind of why I've been more so just focused on props and prize picks for this slate. Is just doesn't really interest me that much, but there's still money to be won. So
certainly is. And as far as money to be won, if you're playing cash games on DraftKings, you're starting with the Lions, like you talked about. It's the best game on the slate. The Lions have the highest total on the slate. Must-win game for them at home in the Dome against a god-awful Bears defense. This spot sets up so well for the Lions. Jared Goff, criminally underpriced at 5,600. And we could like beat around the bush if we wanted, but let's just like be upfront. He's a lock. He's a cash game lock.
Yeah, there's really not too many other quarterbacks that I would consider playing over Jared Goff on this slate. He's projecting for one of the highest overall like total point projections out of any quarterback. He's the best value quarterback on the slate. He's going to be the highest owned quarterback on the slate at home, cupcake matchup, full cast of weapons. He's a lock in cash. 5,600. Obviously, you can get away from him in tournaments just because you do need like 303 for him to really hit his ceiling. And we know that if the Lions get down to the 1 yard line, they're running the ball with Jamal Williams. So that might cap Goff's proverbial ceiling there. So you can get away from him in tournaments, but in cash games, if you're still even playing cash games, which I don't think a ton of people are at this point in the year, Jared Goff is a lock in cash for sure.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. So we can just progress the conversation beyond that and sort of strictly focus on tournaments from here on out at the quarterback position, at least. And where do you think that you see yourself going this week in GPP?
Yeah, I mean, Justin Fields looks interesting at 7,900. I think he is the pay up quarterback that I want to target. Just an insane matchup. He's obviously going for the rushing record here. We saw last week, like, he does have bad games in his range of outcomes, just with his very limited ceiling as a pass catcher with the weapons that Bears, employ right now on the outside, and the injuries that they're dealing with. But this is as good of a spot as any for him to get back on track on the ground. The rushing upside is obviously extremely high, and just on this slate, he's not competing with pretty much anybody besides Mahomes at the top, in my opinion. Justin
Yeah.
Herbert, obviously a low ceiling option at this point. I mean, it's that simple. Jalen Hurts is out. I know it says doubtful, but he's not going to play. It's Gardner Minshew season once again. Tua's out. Kirk Cousins, 6,400, whatever. So
Yep. No
Fields,
Josh Allen, no Joe Burrow.
no Lamar.
Yep.
So he's only competing with Mahomes. So I think at the top of the range, you're probably playing Fields or Mahomes. In there, I'd lean Fields for the $600 discount.
Yeah, no, from a value perspective, it makes sense. I kind of like Mahomes a lot this week, though. I mean, I thought he was going to be right there with Goff in terms of one of the higher owned quarterbacks on the slate, but he's coming in like outside the top 5. I think that, he has the highest ceiling on the slate at the quarterback position. He's been so consistent. Last week was only like the second game out of his last 9 where he failed to throw for 300 passing yards. Like, you can just see he's been on a sick run the second half of the season. I think the ceiling is still there. And I also don't think it's outside of the range of possibilities that, after firing Nathaniel Hackett, the Broncos play a little bit better. Like, we saw the Colts do the same thing with Jeff Saturday. Like, it's not necessarily that they're all of a sudden going to be a good team. And I'm sure that they implode, the following week, but sometimes they can just be like that 1 week boost, got something out of the team organization that wasn't working. The Broncos do have talent on the team. Like, they are not a good team, but they have talented players. And, we just saw 2-3 weeks ago them play, and they put up a pretty good fight against KC. Russell Wilson had a really good fantasy day, threw 3 touchdowns to Jerry Jeudy. Both Jeudy and Sutton are cheap this week, make for good bringbacks on Chiefs stuff. So, I mean, I kind of like the idea of going with Mahomes in tournaments, because for all the same reasons you said about Fields not having a lot of players to compete with, the same is true about Mahomes, and you're getting a really good ownership tag on him this week. So I think that makes a lot of sense for tournaments, and it flips the build, because the other quarterbacks that people are going to play outside of Goff, I think, are like Rodgers, Kirk, Minshew, and it's going to be all that same similar roster construction from a pricing standpoint. So just going to Mahomes is going to make your entire roster construction different, and the ceiling is there. So I really love this spot from Mahomes and Fields as well. But my lean is Mahomes between the two for that reason.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Right now, projections have Mahomes with the highest ceiling on the slate at 31.9, but Fields is right there at 31.7. So not too much of a discrepancy there, which is why personally I would lean Fields just for the game environment as well. Highest total game on the slate, well over 50 at this point. And they're going to be losing to the Lions most likely. So I could see a ton of Justin Fields dropbacks plus rush attempts should set up for a nice fantasy game there, but nonetheless, Mahomes should smash. I mean, we were on his over on his prop on Prize Picks early in the week at 275.5. That's been bumped up. He obviously threw for 350 against the Broncos just a few weeks ago. Now at home, coming off of a dud game, for Mahomes standards at this point, only 16 completions on 28 attempts. The weather's beautiful across the country this week, so we don't have to worry about weather in any of these, outside games. I think this is a prime bounce back spot for Patrick Mahomes, and they're obviously still fighting for the 1 seed, so you get the motivation there. And yeah, this is just a nice juicy matchup for Patrick, and I'm all over Mahomes this week, especially on the props. And we did see the Broncos wide receivers come to Russell Wilson's aid in behalf, especially on social media over the last few days. And maybe, the interim coach, and I've seen this posted on Twitter, maybe the interim coach is, preaching about like how you have to have each other's backs. Like,
yeah,
and Hackett wasn't doing that. So maybe they come around this interim coach and play a little bit better. But like you said, they made that game kind of competitive. They got down like 3 scores early, but made a slight comeback. So we know the Broncos can move the ball in this Kansas City defense, and Mahomes 8,500 definitely looks good.
Yeah, all we need is for, Russ to play like decent. And I think that, they won't take their foot off the gas from the Chiefs' perspective. And that's what we need because, like, the Bills game isn't until Monday. So Casey definitively needs to win this game. There won't be any like scoreboard watching. They won't know where they stand. So they just need to win this game, plain and simple. And, their schedule is cupcake. They've got this terrible Denver team, and then they've got the Raiders with Jarrett Stidham next week. So they're pretty much a lock to win out these 2 games. The seeding is just going to come down to that Bills-Bengals game, and they won't know the result. So I think that they go full throttle in this spot and just really have their way with a team that just gave up 50 points to Baker Mayfield and the Rams. And that kind of tells you all you need to know.
Yeah. No, Mahomes definitely a smash, and all 3 teams can, get the 1 seed, the Bengals, Bills, and Chiefs. So they will be trying their absolute hardest to win these games. And we know that Mahomes and the Chiefs, they're just going to come out super pass heavy, no matter who they play. So 8,500 for Mahomes. And like you said, it flips the build. Speaking of some of the, cheaper quarterbacks, though, I mean, we already talked about Goff. He's a lock in cash. You have Rodgers, Kirk. I would include Minshew in that tier. Mike White at 5,400. I think all of these guys are good tournament pivots. Do you have a lean for tournaments out of any of those quarterbacks that I just mentioned, not including Jared Goff?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's probably Kirk. He's just been on such a fire run lately. I think Justin Jefferson is going to have a monster game here. I mean, Jair Alexander made a huge mistake this week, just calling
that I don't know what the fuck he was thinking.
That was just poor judgment, and I think he's going to pay the consequences very swiftly. So I mean, you can at least bank 150 passing yards into Kirk Cousins' base projection because that's what Justin Jefferson's going for minimum, and then whatever else he spreads around. So yeah, I like Kirk this week for sure. You're definitely paying up a little bit for it. He's like 800 more than Jared Goff. So that's a bit. Rodgers to me is the weak link of the 3 that you mentioned, just because like it doesn't matter how or how good the spot is. He's been in a lot of good spots this year, and he has 1 game over 20 DraftKings points. Like he just has not been able to get it done. Christian Watson, his most explosive pass catcher, is day to day. I think that he's probably going to play. Do you have a lean on whether or not Watson plays?
I think he tries to give it a go.
He seems truly questionable.
Yeah, I think he's questionable. I think if he does play, he'll probably be limited, if I had to guess right now. So I don't think Watson himself is in consideration for anything. But yeah, I think he probably gives it a go.
Yeah, and Aaron Jones also not fully healthy right now. So it's just like they're depleted on weapons. The matchup is definitely great, but like I just don't think that like Rodgers is going to come out and have, a ceiling game to the point that you need him in tournaments. I just don't really foresee that. Like, I don't really think it's in his range with this current cast of Packers weapons. They play slow. I think they're going to give a lot of touches to AJ Dillon with Jones limited. So that one is the weak link to me. And then Minshew is super interesting. It's just a matter of like, can the Saints push, or is the Philly defense going to be so dominant that they don't need it? And it's just like a Miles Sanders type of game. I think that that's like a legitimate concern. Like this isn't last week against Dallas where they're going to be facing an offense that they combined for 74 points against. Like I think this will be a much lower scoring game. That being said, the ceiling is obviously still there. The pass catchers are so good, and people just I don't think they're going to go back to Minshew. Like he'll have lower ownership than guys like Fields and Rodgers and Goff. So you can do that. You can play the wide receivers with cheap ownership tags as well. Minshew would probably be my favorite outside of Goff in this cheap end for tournaments.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't mind Minshew at all. Obviously, I'll pull it back up. 28 DraftKings points, 300-yard bonus. Definitely a more competitive game though last week against the Cowboys. I don't think we get that out of the Saints. So I think his ceiling is pretty limited. But I don't mind Minshew. Just kind of hard to get away from Goff if you're paying down at quarterback in tournaments. I just think that game is clear cut. the standout game. I mean, that's not obviously a unique thought or anything. But nonetheless,
It's
talking about
sorry.
Rodgers real
No,
quick.
go ahead.
Talking about Rodgers, I don't mind Rodgers. I mean, obviously he hasn't been good this season from a box score perspective. As you said, only one game above 20 DraftKings points, but this is a game where they're probably going to have to throw the ball to win and to keep up with the Vikings. So at 6K, I don't mind Rodgers this week. He's projecting well, and that game does look like a game that you can stack and target for tournaments on this slate. So I don't mind Rodgers, but Goff, I'd rather just play Goff.
So with Goff, though, I mean, I guess you just got to get really contrarian around it because, like, it's hard to bring anybody back. I think,
I mean,
it's hard to find a Bears bring back. Chark is going to be owned. Amon-Ra is going to be one of the top 3 highest owned wide receivers on the slate. Like, the only contrarian plays from the Lions side of the ball are like, you could play Walif or you could play like Jamison Williams. That's super, super thin. Or you could go to the running backs as like a contrarian pivot. But I mean, how do you play Goff in a contrarian way?
I mean, at quarterback, I don't think you need to really worry about ownership, right? I'm just playing the quarterback who's going to project for the most points. And yeah, he's going to be 17 to 20% owned, most likely higher than that. But on a week specifically where there's not any quarterbacks that are going to separate in a meaningful way, I'll put my stamp on that right now. Jared Goff at his ownership is completely fine.
Okay. Even if it gets up to like 25%?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Quarterback ownership really does not matter, to me at least. Because on a slate like this, like I just said, there's really going to be no quarterbacks that are going to separate in a meaningful way. So if Jared Goff finishes with 22 or 23 and Rodgers finishes with 18 and Mike White finishes with 20, like it doesn't really matter which quarterback you play at that point, regardless of ownership.
The only way earned is if Fields or Mahomes go for 35 plus.
Yeah. And if they go for 35 plus and then Goff would have to, put up like a mediocre, like 17 or 18 points, right? That's really the only way that playing Goff hurts you. So I think for me, if I'm building tournament lineups, I'm just playing Jared Goff over these cheap quarterbacks. I mean, I'm just taking the projection there. No need to outsmart yourself. Just follow the projection, especially on a week like this. This week is ugly. This week is horrendous. Play the quarterback in the best environment, in the best game, in the best matchup on the slate in Jared Goff, and get different elsewhere. That'd be my advice.
All right, I like that. Yo, what up, Ricky? Shout out to you joining the chat here. Early stream, New Year's Eve this evening. Be out on the town. Ball drop, sparkles, vibes. You know how it goes. Other quarterbacks, I got 3 more guys that I just want to list real quick as potential tournament options and stacks that I think are interesting. Tom Brady, 6,100. The way the Bucs offense has been lately, it's hard to trust, obviously, in a similar way to Rodgers, just looking at the results. But you can see, like, on the screen here, he's thrown for 44 plus times in 4 straight games. He's gotten over 50 here. Like, the volume is going to be there, and the receivers are cheap enough that, like, I think you could find a way where it gets there. This is a must-win game. This game between Tampa and Carolina is each of these teams' respective seasons. Whoever wins this game is going to be in. Whoever wins this or loses this game is going to be out. So I think that there's some merit to going there with Brady. And the other 2 guys, I mean, Mike White and then Russell Wilson. Like, Russell Wilson has had 2 big fantasy games this year. One came against the Raiders early and one came against KC, like we referenced. Maybe, like you said, everybody's coming together in that locker room. Maybe we just see a good performance out of Russ. It's a good matchup. They're going to be chasing points, and his receivers are stupid cheap. So it makes a lot of sense, I think, to at least take that shot in tournaments. And Mike White, again, another must-win game for the Jets here. Garrett Wilson's going to be super, super chalky. All the Jets guys are actually projecting pretty well, and I don't think anybody's really going to go with Mike White. So that makes sense. They've obviously shown a willingness to just let him completely air it out. So those are the other 3 guys that I would put into tournament consideration.
Yeah, Mike White's going to be, roughly around 5%. So I don't mind that, especially if you're stacking him up with Garrett Wilson and maybe another Jets pass catcher. Game environment obviously isn't that great, but the matchup is good for the Jets. So I don't mind that at all. I I don't really have anything else for quarterback, so I think we can move on to running back here. In cash, there is a discussion to be had about which cash game running backs you're going to play and overall just what lineup construction you're going to run. I think that the value running backs on the slate have kind of opened up for us.
Yeah.
So we can start down there. We have Brian Robinson at 5,200 at home against a Cleveland run funnel defense. Antonio Gibson was ruled out of this game. I think Brian Robinson will project for anywhere between 18 to 24 touches in this spot, maybe a slight boost in terms of his pass game role. And at 5,200, he's projecting really well right now. So I don't mind Brian Robinson. Then you also have Tyler Algier at 5,300 at home in a matchup where I think the Falcons are very live to win this game against David Blau and the Cardinals. Algier has kind of supplanted himself as the Falcons RB1 over Cordero Patterson. Algier is projecting really well right now as well, actually projected better than Brian Robinson. So he's 5,300. And then some other cheap running backs that I would mention, you have Miles Sanders at 5,900, looks okay at home against the Saints. Then you have Travis Etienne, 6,400, Cam Akers, 6,100 against the Chargers run funnel defense. So are you playing three of these guys? Which ones are your favorite? And do you have to play like Saquon or CMC this week on a week where the value running backs do look very good and they are projecting really well right now?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is a pretty big change from like what we were talking about on the podcast this week, but like I do think that you can get away from the higher price running backs, and part of that is because the quality plays at wide receiver are a little more expensive this week. Like Justin Jefferson looks incredible this week, 9,500. Amon-Ra St. Brown is 7,800. I think there's a pretty good chance that you could find yourself on a build with both of them in your cash lineup, at which case you need to find some savings at running back. And it makes sense because like Algier to me is a really, really strong play at 5,300. Matchup is great. Workload is great. He's separating more and more from Cordero Patterson each and every week. I mean, he had 5 targets last week as well. So like even the pass game role is starting to look better. It's a good matchup against Arizona. Falcons, I mean, you said that they're live to win this game. I think they should win this game against David Blau. Yeah. DeAndre Hopkins isn't fully healthy. Like this is just a really, really tough spot. They put Greg Dortch on IR. Like I could see the Cardinals get completely steamrolled here. And Algier seems like a really, really solid play to me. Brian Robinson, I love, referencing some of the props we made. I mean, I've been hammering this since Tuesday. I've got Brian Robinson over 65.5 rushing yards and like 6 different slips, got bumped to 75.5. I mean, he's going to smash that 100%, speak it into existence. But yeah, I love B-Rob this week. They really have nobody. Without JD McKissick and Antonio Gibson there, like I think his touch projection looks phenomenal. Just like you were saying, like 18 to me would be the floor outside of injury. I think that he's probably going for 20 plus easily. I think it's a solid tournament fade for sure because the ceiling is probably capped, but I think the floor is pretty high here. It wouldn't surprise me if this was a touchdown or 2 touchdown game out of Brian Robinson in what's a really good spot. Also a must-win game for Washington. They have sort of like the lead in that wild card race right now because of their head-to-head wins. So if they can just finish this out, they have complete control of their playoff destiny. And I think that they ride Brian Robinson heavy here after making a quarterback switch once again this week back to Carson Wentz.
Yep, I definitely agree. I think Brian Robinson looks pretty good. Algier looks really, really good. So are you like locking those 2 players into your cash game lineup?
I think at this point, I feel pretty confident that I'm playing both of them in cash games. And then the decision comes down to whether or not you want to play, which of these other running backs you want to play. I think you're probably playing 3 this week. Is it Sanders, or do you find the money to get up to somebody like Saquon, CMC, James Conner? I would throw in that mix. I think CMC is priced out. I think that if you're paying $9,000 for a player on DraftKings this week, it's Justin Jefferson. Barkley and Connor is interesting to me. My preference, if they were the same price, would be Barkley easily. I think that it's just the role is so much better. We've talked about it a ton The Giants are in the playoff race as well. They know that they need to win games. They're going to their best player. Barkley's pass game role has expanded to where it should be, being the talented player that he is in that facet of the game recently. So, I mean, Barkley to me is the one. Connor, his role, like 90+% snaps every single week. No other running back in the league is playing, the percentage of their team's plays that James Conner is playing. But David Blau, bad matchup. Like, I mean, do you think that the offensive environment for Connor is enough to pay the 800 to get up to Barkley? Because that's really what the conversation to me is. It's like, do you prioritize Barkley or do you take the risk of the offense imploding and go with Connor in the safe workload?
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals might be without DeAndre Hopkins in this spot as well. So if Diop is out, I mean, James Conner, I mean, the matchup is good. On the road against Atlanta, 90+% snap player. He's literally never leaving the field. Touch upside is extremely high. Reception upside is extremely high. Should catch a bunch of checkdowns. I mean, I think James Conner is one of the best plays on the slate. And like I said, if D-Hop is out, that only boosts James Conner's fantasy stack. So we'll have to see about that. I think that D-Hop will probably go. But if he's out, James Conner looks really, really strong. But I think Saquon is probably the lean there for 800 more. I mean, just a better player, in my opinion. I think a higher ceiling from a team perspective at this point at home against, a dead in the water Colts team that is just getting ran over by everybody that they play. And the Giants finally figured out, that in order to make the playoffs, they have to give their best player the ball more than what they were, doing in the middle of the season. They kind of ease his workload a little bit, but now it's time again to start feeding your workhorse running back. As we see on the screen, 18 targets over his last 2 games, 13 catches, touchdowns in back-to-back games. This is just prime territory to start playing and riding Saquon again if you're the Giants. So 8K for Saquon. I think that he's probably the best cash game running back at the top of the pool.
So, all right. If we're on Connor this week, or I'm sorry, if we're on Barkley this week, though, you can't play JJ. So is that a sacrifice you're willing to make?
I mean, yeah, from a projection standpoint, it looks good.
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, it's tough to swallow, man, because I really do feel like Justin Jefferson's going to go absolutely fucking nuclear this week. I mean, Jair really shouldn't have opened his mouth.
Yeah, I mean, is a 9-catch, 183-yard game and I think like 2 touchdowns a fluke?
I mean, he was on a good side of variance, but I think that he's shown that it's not fluky because he does it like every couple weeks. So,
yeah, no, I mean, JJ's a very good play. We'll talk about him at wide receiver. But other than that, in terms of tournament running backs, there's not too much I'm interested in. Aaron Jones is off the injury report, but he's obviously still banged up at this point. I think A.J. Dillon should see, quite a bit of work in this spot. And Aaron Jones' ceiling just hasn't been where we wanted / expected it to be prior to the season. I think Dalvin Cook is a good contrarian play, especially if Justin Jefferson is one of the highest owned running backs on the slate. Green Bay, run funnel defense, right? Dalvin Cook obviously has the 25, 30-point upside as we see on the screen, 26, 28, 28 last week against the Giants, or 28 2 weeks ago against the Colts. And this is a game that I could see the Vikings controlling. So Dalvin Cook, 7K, great matchup. I don't mind him. Other than that, there's really not too much that I'd be interested in from a tournament perspective. I think the chalk running backs are very good this week.
No, I agree with that. I have a few longer shot contrarian running backs that I want to talk through for tournaments. Start off with Cam Akers, 6,100. I kind of thought people were going to chase points here more so than it looks like they will. Pretty low ownership projection on Cam Akers. Obviously, he goes completely nuclear last week. I mean, if you want to talk about like a fluke performance, I think that, Akers running for 118 and 3 is pretty fluky. I don't think he's going to touch 37 DraftKings points anytime again soon here, but it is a good matchup against the Chargers. I mean, do you have any interest in going to Akers in tournaments as like a price point pivot off of somebody like Miles Sanders?
I don't mind Akers. The matchup is good, and they've shown that they want to just run Cam Akers at this point in the season and feed him the rock. So definitely don't mind Akers. Rushing upside pretty high in this spot. And I don't think game script really matters. They're going to run the ball no matter if they're winning or losing at this point in the season. And they're just trying to get in and get out of these games. So Akers looks okay, but like you said, he's probably not touching 30 plus DraftKings points, in these last two games. So
yeah, no, he probably is not. The other running back that I'd like to shout out here is Jerick McKinnon, 6K flat. I mean, like if there's a reality where Denver plays this game a little bit closer than, Vegas is implying that they do. I mean, McKinnon definitely has access to a ceiling. He's been the highest scoring running back on DraftKings 2 out of the last 3 weeks. So like obviously the ceiling is clearly there. I mean, do you have any interest in going to McKinnon? It doesn't look like he's going to be too high on this week.
yeah, I don't mind McKinnon, especially if he's lower owned, and him and Pacheco have been kind of flip flopping in terms of ownership. And if I look in right now, McKinnon projected for 7%, Isaiah Pacheco projected for 4%. So the field will be on McKinnon more than Pacheco, but both will be pretty low owned options to go to. And I definitely think McKinnon is probably the play over Pacheco just for the pass game role that he possesses. And he ultimately has like just the high value role, touchdowns in 4 straight games. And McKinnon's been one of the best fantasy backs over, the last month of the season. So I'd roll McKinnon there at sub 10% ownership.
Yep, I like that. Last guy on my list for tournaments at running back would be 5K flat Jamal Williams. I think that he sets up as arguably the best leverage play on the entire slate, with Goff and Amon-Ra being so high owned respectively. Nobody's going to play Jamal. His ownership projection is non-existent. And I mean, how many multi-touchdown games does this dude have this year? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games with 2+ touchdowns scored. Like even in those games, he's not breaking slates. Like he's usually just squeaking over 20 points, somewhere between 20 and 25, because he's not going to be doing much in the receiving game, and he doesn't have the ability to rack up large, yardage games. But he can punch 2 or 3 in. He's done it multiple times, 5 times this year, and he's direct leverage off of, the chalkiest stack on the slate.
Yeah, I mean, Jamal Williams is a clear tournament pivot here. Obviously, the floor is super, super low, as you could see on the screen. I mean, a month straight of not hitting 10 plus DraftKings points. In one of those games, he scored a touchdown, right? Yeah. Non-existent pass game role. So I think he's just like a low floor, low ceiling option, but he could definitely will his way into 2, 1-yard touchdowns in this spot. Highest game total on the slate. And that's really just what you're hoping for is a multi-touchdown game. And ultimately, I think that's just a bad bet. So I don't think I'll be playing any Jamal Williams. I'd rather just play DeAndre Swift at 5,300 if I'm playing a Lions running back.
Yeah, I mean, Swift, same sort of thing. I mean, God, like the ceiling should be there. He gets high value touches. He's kind of like Jerick McKinnon on a worst offense. But I mean, God damn, dude, I'm so sick of taking L's with DeAndre Swift. I've been doing it all year.
Yeah, I mean, I would just stay away from the Lions running backs, to be honest. I mean, this is just a full-blown RBBC with Justin Jackson in there as well. They're all going to get touches. Swift, obviously, like you said, is going to get the high-value touches in terms of the receptions. Kind of a down game last week, 5 targets, only 1 catch, but he'll probably see 3, 4, 5 catches in this game, 5,300. So the price tag is good. Just need him to punch in a touchdown pretty much, but he definitely projects worse than the other cheap running backs that he's around. So, I mean, disgusting pivot, but I think he's fine. The other running backs that I would consider are the Bucs guys, specifically Leonard Fournette. I mean, we saw playoff Lenny come out, have 29 touches, the most touches that he's had in a game the entire season. Obviously, we talked about it on the pod. That was a little bit fluky. Him and Rachaad White are rotating drives. Like that is firmly entrenched at this point, is they are rotating drives. Rachaad White will start the game. Fournette will come in the next drive. But Fournette's drives have been, or at least in this past game, they were lasting longer. I think Brady trusts Fournette a little bit more than Rashad White. And whenever Fournette's out there for any of his drives, you could lock him in for at least one catch. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. So I like his over 4 catches. Prize picks are underdog. And I think he should get 4+ catches. There's some concern, he tweeted that he is dealing with a little bit of an injury to his foot, which is recently deleted, of course. But still, he showed that he has upside. And when the Bucks offense is kind of rolling, it hasn't been at all this year, but when it's kind of going, Fournette has as much upside as any running back in the entire NFL in terms of pass game work. So
yeah, no, I mean, I like that quite a bit, but I mean, talking about that foot injury stuff and like just the flukiness of how his drives have been so much, better sustained than Rashad White, that kind of makes me want to play Rashad White at 1% owned. Like that's really low. And he's had a great pass game role too. I mean, he can score touchdowns. He scored a touchdown last week. I don't know. I kind of like this play at literal 1% play.
Yeah, I definitely don't mind Rashad White. I think at this point, I personally do believe that Leonard Fournette is a better player.
Agreed.
And like I said, Brady trusts him more. I think he's better in pass protection. And when it comes down to it in these games that they need to win, Leonard Fournette's going to be on the field over Rashad White. Just point blank, period. So I think Fournette should see more snaps in this game. I think you could lock him in for more touches, 100%. So I'd rather just go with Fournette over White there for only $100 more. Projections have Fournette at 8%. They have him projected for 13.8 points. So not that great, but that's a tournament pivot that I like. And Rashad White, 12.3 points. So yeah, 1.5 projected points less, but under 1%. I mean, White looks pretty good if you're playing large field tournaments.
Yep. Last guy we got to touch on, because we kind of skipped over him, and I actually think that some people at least will be considering him for cash games. Is your boy Ramondre?
Yeah, Ramondre looks good. Dealing with an injury, Damian Harris is back, so I think Ramondre loses base work to Damian Harris, obviously. And as a Patriots fan, I do think Damian Harris is a very good, just pure runner.
Yeah.
I mean,
does the fumble last week that cost them the game have any? I mean, Ramondre was intimately involved in 2 of the worst losses of any team this year in the last 2 weeks directly. So,
hey, I mean, the loss against the Raiders was not on him, as you can see, 172 yards and a touchdown.
For sure.
Maybe he should have just went down instead of pitching it back to Jacoby, but whatever. But yeah, he lost the fumble that lost the Patriots game last week. Damian Harris is off the injury report, going to play finally. And Damian Harris, in my opinion, is one of the better pure runners in the NFL. So he's going to lose base work for sure to Harris. But the pass game role is still Ramondre's, and that role is super valuable. But I think this is a game that, could be close. I think it will be close, especially with Tua out. And they're still going to have to throw the ball, right? And Ramondre has a super valuable role in that aspect. So I don't mind him. He's not as good as he was without Damian Harris, but he looks okay to me at this point. But I don't think he's a lock or anything.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think Harris kind of lowers the ceiling, I guess is how I look at it. I mean, I think, like you said, pass game role is still there. He should have a pretty good floor, even though he didn't have much of a floor last week. Yeah, I like Ramondre a decent bit. And I mean, the spread has moved pretty deeply in favor of the Patriots. They're up to 5-point home favorites now against the Teddy Bridgewater led Dolphins.
Take the Dolphins points with the points.
Yeah.
Moving on to wide receiver, and we'll talk about this after because I want to build a nice prize picks entry for the gang.
Word.
After the stream or after we talk about DraftKings. But moving on to wide receiver, you have Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson at the top end of the pool. Obviously, Justin Jefferson in terms of cash and tournaments is going to be super high owned. And I think obviously he's a good play. We just talked about Jair Alexander just running his mouth once again. Justin Jefferson going for the 2,000-yard milestone that no NFL wide receiver has hit. He's only in his 3rd year. That'd be, insane if he hits it. As you could see, I mean, lock this dude in for 100+.
Yeah.
We got him at 92.5, as did a lot of people. He went up to 95.5 later in the week. And right now, Justin Jefferson is currently at, if I take a gander, Justin Jefferson is currently still at 95.5 on Prize Picks, a little bit higher on Underdog. I think he's 97.5 on Underdog, or 98.5. Obviously a smash play. Tyreek Hill, though. Tyreek Hill is a fantastic tournament pivot. The Patriots are out Marcus Jones and Jack Jones tomorrow. Right? Marcus Jones has kind of been gaining steam as a popular player for, the Patriots fan base and just the NFL in general, right? Like, he's been kind of a two-way player for the Patriots. We don't have any of those in the NFL. He had a pick 6 against Joe Burrow. Dynamic, electric. He's out. Jack Jones, our best cornerback on the season, is out. Then Jonathan Jones and Jalen Mills are both questionable / doubtful. The Patriots may be down their top 4 corners in this spot. And this is a pseudo playoff game, right? Like, this is a fake playoff game. Both teams have to win if they want to make the playoffs. So we're going to see a competitive game. And when Teddy Bridgewater was starting, or when he was playing, he targeted Tyreek Hill pretty much at the same kind of volume and rate that Tua does. So I think Tyreek Hill is a lock for 10 plus targets in this spot. And the upside is obviously extremely high. 18 points against New England in week 1. I mean, if he scores a touchdown, maybe hits a 100-yard bonus, that's a 30-point game, right? Like 6 yards away from the bonus. If he gets in the box, great tournament pivot at the top. So Tyreek Hill.
I love that play.
Tyreek Hill's the tournament play for me this week at wide receiver. I know it's kind of early. We usually go over cash first, but I just had to talk about him.
No, I mean, I love that play. I really do.
Especially since he's projected to be stupid low owned too.
Yeah. I mean, nobody. I mean, honestly, nobody's gonna play him. Nobody's gonna play Adams, and nobody's gonna play Brown. Like, all these guys don't have their starting quarterbacks right now. It's Teddy for the Dolphins. It's Jarrett Stidham for the Raiders, and Minshew there for the Eagles. So it's like, I think that is going to kind of keep people off of these plays. And I think that they all still have ceilings, to be honest. Like, their ceilings are maybe a little bit lower, but like, Jarrett Stidham can still throw Devontae Adams the ball 15 times. And if that happens, he's going to fucking get there. So,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
I was looking at Devontae Adams prop on Prize Picks. It's like 58 yards. And
are you dead ass right now?
I had the same thought. Like, I don't care who the quarterback is. Like, Devontae Adams is so good that he can get 58 yards with any quarterback if he gets 10 to 15 targets. But they're like pretty much out of the playoffs at this point. So, and they may rest their vets. So
I guess that's fair. Definitely a little risk there with Adams, considering the car benching. All right. So for cash games, these are all tournament guys outside of Jefferson. Jefferson's squarely in play. It's just a matter of whether or not you can get there in cash games. The other guy at the top that is going to be very highly utilized in cash is Amon-Ra St. Brown at 7,800. I mean, what needs to be said about the Sun God? He's going to get 10 plus targets every time he's out there on the field. This is a must-win game for Detroit. Great matchup, pairs well with Goff, who you're already going to have locked into your cash game lineups. I mean, what else can you say? You're jamming Sun God.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're playing ASB, you're moving on. And he hasn't had a ceiling game in a while, which I like too.
Yeah,
he's 25 against Chicago week 10 in Chicago. Now Chicago comes to Detroit, down some players on both sides of the ball, kind of banged up. Great matchup for the Lions. ASB, I mean, we were on ASB overs on Prize Picks. We were on that early in the week at 75.5 yards. He's currently at 80.5 yards. So got a nice 5-yard value there with ASB. But yeah, you're locking in ASB and cash. You're moving on. I don't think you're playing any of these wide receivers like in the 6 to 7K range in cash. I think Chris Godwin is interesting. Playoff game pretty much as well in Tampa Bay and Carolina. Winner will be, right on track to win the division. I think if Tampa Bay wins, they do win the division. And they'll be able to rest some starters next week. So Tampa Bay is going to go all out for this game, try and win the game. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, I think look okay. Other than that, Garrett Wilson under 6K is going to be chalk. Once again, good matchup. 5,500. Mike White back in as a starting quarterback. He's going to see 8 to 12 targets in this game. I think you're just locking him in and you're moving on.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, him and Amon-Ra St. Brown come pre-built into cash game lineups this week.
Yeah, for sure.
Is just out of curiosity. Oh yeah, I was gonna say, is Garrett close to any benchmarks? But yeah, he's 4 yards away from 1,000. So I mean, that's a shoo-in. All right, other cash game wide receivers that I think people will be interested in. I mean, there's a lot of cheap guys that are projecting pretty well. Jacoby's projecting okay. Curtis Samuel's projecting pretty well. That's interesting. We talked about that early in the week, as when Carson Wentz was the starter early in the year, it was Curtis Samuel who was his go-to target. He had the best target share in the offense. He's only 4,400. He's projecting as one of the better values at wide receiver this week, and Zay Jones as well in that same price range at 5K. Jacksonville, again, they have nothing to play for, but all the rhetoric is that they're going to play their guys without any sort of rest. And I also saw a post on Twitter about all of the incentives in Zay Jones and Christian Kirk's contract. I mean, they're both like, they have multiple incentives for catches and yards that they're both very in reach of. So maybe that's an aspect. And the coaches, they want to take care of these guys, right? I mean, especially like Zay having a career year here down the stretch. Like, I could definitely see them, trying to get these guys paid. I think if Zay gets something like, 100 yards and maybe 5 to 10 catches, he's going to make another 500 bands. Like, that's, I would take that. I would fucking take that for sure. So,
I mean, the coaches definitely ain't talking about that, but the players themselves are for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Like Trevor Lawrence and the wide receivers and shit are talking about, what they got to do over the last 2 weeks to get those bonuses, and kind of the same thing with Mike Evans. He has his 1,000-yard mark that he's had every year in his entire career, and those are things to definitely keep in the back of your mind for this week for sure. So I don't mind the Jags wide receivers, but the Texans have been a tough matchup against opposing wide receivers and quarterbacks, right? Like, it is that simple. They have. Their defensive scheme is pretty solid, although they're a bad team, but they've been playing teams close, and I don't think the Jags rest their starters in this spot. Somebody brought up a good point, forgot who mentioned it, but the Jags are just too young on offense to give them rest, right? Like they need to play as much as they can and be as prepared as they can if they make the playoffs. And obviously, playoff game pretty much next week. Winner gets in between the Jags and the Titans. So I don't think they rest starters in the spot. Zay, Kirk are okay, but tough matchup. ETN's going to be the chalk. I think ETN's a smash, but I don't mind those guys. Jacoby Myers, 5K. I mean, he's out there. He's going to get 7 to 8 targets. That simple.
Yeah.
Number one.
I mean,
option.
floor's been mad low for him lately, but I like Jacoby.
Number one option for sure, but like in this Vikings game, he got hurt, right? He left the game, didn't play the entire game pretty much. Bills game was playing hurt, didn't play the entire game. So, yeah, you can look at the box scores, but this doesn't tell the whole story, right? Like, he was dealing with kind of a bad injury there. So I don't mind him. We're going to have to wait and see on the Packers stuff, especially with Christian Watson. We have Lazard at 5,400. Romeo Dobbs at 4,700. I think both of those guys will be in play. Curtis Samuel at 4,400 looks okay. And if you want a nice little, it's not, I wouldn't say it's a hedge, but a nice play on Prize Picks or Underdog, they're roughly the same. Curtis Samuel over 31.5 receiving yards right now on Prize Picks, 32.5 on Underdog. Currently, I could pull it up real quick. I know on Run the Sims, he's projected for almost 50 yards. And then on Roto Grinders. Let me just pull it up real quick. Where are we at? On Roto Grinders, they have Curtis Samuel projected for 35 yards. So, I mean, not that much of a discrepancy there. But if you have the narrative that Carson Wentz likes to go to Curtis Samuel, 31.5 seems pretty low here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think so. I mean, he's been even crossing that line with Heineke, and I think he does get at least another target or two than what you would expect with Wentz there. Connor asks top picks for this week. Yeah, Joey has them on the screen here. I mean, this is pretty much the cash game core. You could throw Jared Goff in there at quarterback as well in terms of a top play. I mean, Goff is a smash this week. So, I mean, this is definitely the core you want to go to. Some of the other guys that aren't included here would be like Justin Jefferson and Saquon Barkley is high-priced guys. James Conner is another high-priced smash play. And that's sort of where we're at so far here. Man, projections do not want to validate me with this Drake London love that I've got. I don't know why. I mean, they have a good team total this week. It's like 23. It's higher than more than half the teams on the slate. He's got 32 targets over the last few weeks, 34% target share, and Desmond Ritter starts. Like, bro, this guy gets volume like crazy. He's got talent now, and it's a good matchup. I don't understand why the projections don't like him.
Please just a limited touchdown upside here with Drake London, obviously. But I don't mind it. I mean, I don't mind Drake London. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other. I just think that this is a game, especially if they're winning, that it could just be a very run-centric game plan for sure. Thoughts on Packers wide receivers? So, yeah, we talked about it a little bit, but I think Christian Watson, who's questionable right now, I think he's probably going to play. He went DMP, LP. So I think that's a good sign that he's at least going to be suited up for this game against Minnesota, a game that Green Bay has to win if they want to make the playoffs. So I think he plays, but I think he's going to be limited. So I do believe that Lazard and Dobbs are both solid tournament pivots at 54 and 4,700 respectively. But I probably wouldn't play them in cash if Watson is available. But if Watson is out, I think you could play either and feel pretty comfortable.
Yeah, and between the two, I would just prefer Lazard. We saw him be the one that Rodgers went to when Watson went out. They have a longer standing rapport. Dobbs has had a significant amount of like impactful drops early in the year. So like this is a must-win game. Obviously, the matchup is a stone cold smash. The Vikings secondary is a spot you want to attack week in and week out. If Watson gets ruled out, I would feel comfortable with Lazard in cash. I would probably like him more than like Zay Jones, for example, as like a wide receiver 3 in that range. But yeah, I think you're probably playing Amon-Ra and Wilson, and then you have a choice to make as to where you want to spend up in your lineup, whether it's for Saquon at running back or Justin Jefferson as your wide receiver 3. And that's really like the main decision point on this slate, to be honest.
Yep. Totally agree. I don't know any other wide receivers besides the guys that we've already talked about.
I don't know, man. Like guys that are projecting well that we haven't talked about would be like Brandon Cooks, Tutu Atwell, Elijah Moore. Like I'm not interested in playing any of those guys. I like DJ Chark for tournaments. I think that like if you want to double stack Goff, Chark makes a lot of sense. He's going to have some ownership, but he's just been making a lot of big plays for the Lions offense. And then, I'm looking here. Like I like London more than the projections. I'll definitely play some London. I think London's cash viable, to be honest with you. And yeah, that's is that about it? Like I like Keenan and Godwin in that higher range. You talked about Godwin. I think that he's just a shoe-in for 10 plus targets. This is a game where they're going to go to him a lot. Mike Evans is a phenomenal contrarian bring back. And then Keenan Allen. I mean, this dude's got 14 targets in like 3 out of his last 4 games. He's just getting looked at so much. Like that's super valuable on a full PPR site like DraftKings.
You have any interest in Greg Dortch?
He's on IR. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Like 90% sure.
I mean, they would have him out. Somebody brought him up in the chat. they would have him out if he was on IR.
Where to God that
I
I
think you're
got a
bugging.
notification for that the other day. Am I actually bugging?
Uh,
It was
yeah.
Underdog that tweeted that.
No, you're actually on one.
Oh, nah. You know what it was? It was Greg Dulcich that got put on IR, and I have fucking dyslexia apparently. So
yeah, I mean
shout
they would have had it on the screen either way.
Yeah, no, I mean, so yeah,
potentially
yeah.
no Hopkins.
Yeah, I mean, if honestly, if Hopkins sits, min price Greg Dortch
Sounds like a vibe
against the Falcons, who get obliterated by receivers. I mean, shit, he's 3K. I would. Would you play him in cash?
I think you could.
Yeah, I mean, he would probably get 8 targets at the min. So
yeah, I mean,
yeah, no, I mean, honestly, thinking through that a little more, like, yeah, if Hopkins sits, then I would probably play Greg Dortch in every lineup. So
yeah.
Tight end position. Yeah, man.
I mean,
so Evan Ingram is going to be the chalk this week, 4,400. How do you feel about that? I mean, this is a guy who, like, at this point, we got to take the L, because we've been trashing Evan Ingram for a while, but he's been on a fucking run lately. Just the workload is so consistent, and I like Ingram. I like Ingram this week.
Yeah, I mean he's been okay over the last month. I won't take the L on Ingram. I mean,
no,
because obviously, like, playoff weeks matter a little bit more, and he's done well in the playoffs for teams that advance with Evan Ingram. He put up 42 in the week right before, but the first 14 weeks I think matter all the same. And as you can see here, I mean, he had as many dud games as he did solid, consistent games. So I'm not taking the L on Evan Ingram.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not. Take the L on, his last month, maybe.
Bro, you were dogging him for his hairline and his DraftKings picture earlier in the year.
Yeah, I mean, earlier in the year, like, he was giving us 6, 3, 2, 11, like 11, 10, 9, like,
had no business smiling like
1,
that. What are you
4,
happy
1
for? Losing us money.
Like, he's whatever. I mean,
no, I mean, I definitely don't think you need to, like, play into that chalk, to be honest. No. Like, there's, I mean, everybody in that range is just as good. I mean, I would much rather find the 1,000 to get up to Hawkinson. I think he's a significantly better play, but, like, it's kind of tough to do this week. I mean, do you think that you're paying down below Ingram or trying to get up to, like, Hawkinson or Kittle?
I mean, I'm just probably paying down. I think we have some okay options. We have Hunter Henry with no Jonnu Smith against one of the worst defenses against tight ends at 3K, but Hunter Henry himself is dealing with a knee issue. So we'll have to see about his availability. I think, like, Cade Otton is okay. Trey McBride will be okay, especially if D-Hop is out. I think that's a slight boost to Trey McBride there. Ricky says Jelani Wood season.
Yeah, Woods is projecting well.
2,800. Yeah, I don't mind him. He ran like 70% he ran around like 70% of Nick Foles dropbacks, and he started the game hot, 2 catches early for like 35 yards, hit his prop on the first play of the game type shit.
Yeah, he did.
Didn't do shit after that because the Colts literally just could not block. So,
yeah, no, I mean, it's a really, really bad spot for the Colts offense on the road against the Giants.
Yeah, so I don't mind Woods, but I mean, I'll probably just play one of these guys. I don't know. I don't really have a lean right now. I mean, they're all horrible, so yeah, tight end is just dog shit.
The 2 that I would look to, I think, would be Juwan Johnson, 3,500. There are so many injuries to the Saints pass catchers, and Philly is more susceptible to get beat in the middle of the field on defense opposed to the outside. So I think that makes sense. And Juwan Johnson's, like, legit good, and he has a legit ceiling. So
yeah,
I think it's probably either him or Henry, to be honest with you, but we do have to confirm Hunter Henry's status tomorrow morning. Yeah. Like, I prefer Henry over Otton and like Bellinger and all those guys. So
yeah, for sure.
Defense this week, 49ers probably, right? I mean, one of the best defenses in the league going up against Jarrett Stidham, sub 3K. Like, sign me up.
49ers against Jarrett Stidham is a smash. So you're just playing 49ers defense in cash, most likely, unless you really need to save some money. Then the Falcons is okay against David Blow.
I think that the Panthers are okay as well. They're going to face a lot of pass attempts against a pretty bad offense.
Yeah.
2,400.
Yeah, I don't mind the Panthers either. So, yeah, if you need to save salary, I think those two are the pivots off of 49ers, but 49ers are going to be the chalk and cash. Other than that, I mean, just don't play them in tournaments and just play whatever defense you feel like. Great week to be contrarian. Everybody's build's going to look similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's going to pay down at quarterback, pay down at running back. And yeah, that's going to be the build.
And play the same high-priced wide receivers and leave guys like Adams and Tyreek untouched. Sounds good to me.
Yep.
So that's it for the DraftKings preview, I would say. I mean, I guess quick rundown for anybody who's tuning in here. Goff at quarterback, running back, you're probably playing two guys like Robinson, Algier, and then, deciding if you want to play a third running back, whether that is Barkley, Connor, I think, or Miles Sanders, I would say, is the other three best options. Wide receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, cheaper wide receiver, or Justin Jefferson if you don't go the Barkley route. Tight end, punt it off, close your eyes, doesn't matter. Defense, 49ers. And that's cash games for you. Chris, shout out to you, man. Appreciate you.
My boy, Philly. You guys have any interest in Sutton with Judy questionable and limited? I think Absolutely. Judy plays. But yeah, if Judy's out, I mean,
even if he's not, Sutton's like 51.
50.
He's dumb cheap. I think even if Judy plays, Sutton's a really strong tournament play, especially if you're getting up to Mahomes and flipping the build, which we talked about early is like a great GPP strategy, like price tag, ceiling, matchup, correlation with Mahomes stuff. I love it.
Any Bam Knight interest?
I guess so. It's okay. I don't know. Not really. It's good leverage off of Garrett, but I kind of like the other running backs in that range.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind him. I think he's a good play, but he's obviously very game script dependent. I feel like, so
I mean, he's been down under 50% of snaps in 3 straight games now.
Yeah, they're just going to be a running back by committee. Like they're going to use Michael Carter, especially for pass game stuff. Zonovan Knight's going to see the base work. They'll probably mix in like Ty Johnson a little bit. How about the Patriots? I mean, they're just dog shit.
Yeah, they're good. God, man, like all those injuries you were outlining for their secondary. I mean,
that's my tournament call of the week. For anybody wondering, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle's 7,500, so I'd rather just pay up the 1,400 to get up to Tyreek Hill. And I was looking at it off the screen a little bit earlier, but Teddy Bridgewater has not started a game this year because he's came in relief of the 2 quarterbacks that got hurt. So Tua got hurt in the Cincinnati game. Teddy Bridgewater, he comes in, has 61% of the snaps, 1 touchdown, 193 yards. So I obviously don't know how many of those targets of those 23 went to Tyreek Hill. I'd have to go back and go through every single play. But Tyreek Hill has had one of his best games. Then in week 6, that was the other game that Teddy Bridgewater came in relief of what's his name? Skylar something. Skylar Thompson played 69% of the snaps. Thompson left a little bit early, had 34 attempts. Tyreek Hill finishes that game, 15 targets, 12 catches, as you can see, 177 yards. So I think a majority of those targets in that game came from Teddy.
Yeah.
So we know that Teddy targets Tyreek Hill at a pretty extreme rate. The Patriots could be down their top 4 cornerbacks, like I already outlined. Marcus Jones and Jack Jones are already confirmed out. Jalen Mills has missed like the last 3 or 4 weeks. And then Jonathan Jones is on the injury report as well. So if I had to guess, I think Jonathan Jones plays. I think Jalen Mills is out. And then Marcus Jones and Jack Jones are already ruled out. So Tyreek Hill, 8,900 in a playoff game. He's going to see 10 to 15 targets.
It's a great
smash.
spot. I mean, do you think that you could get away with like a Teddy double?
I think you can for sure.
He's 5K in that Minnesota game where he did play like the predominant amount of snaps. I mean, I know it was against Minnesota and they're like the worst secondary in the league, so that's going to be boosted. But I mean, shit, the Pats secondary is going to be right in that same tier with all their guys out. So like, shit, 5K. He threw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. Like, super contrarian.
Yeah, no, I definitely like it. And the Patriots do have a tough run defense as well. And like I said, there's literally no weather concerns. It's going to be beautiful weather in every single game this on this slate. So we don't really have to worry about that. And yeah, everybody in the chat, there's talking about the Jags resting players. We talked about that a little bit. This game is meaningless for the Jags. They're pretty much the only team that does not have motivation per se. Well, there's teams that don't, but the teams that don't and are out of it are still just going to play their guys, right? Like these dudes are still playing for paychecks and whatnot. But the Jags technically do not have to play their starters, but somebody outlined this, like I forgot who said it, and I agree with the statement that like they're just too young to get like veteran rest, to get playoff rest. Like you have Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, like all these guys. Like some of them, I guess you could consider vets, but like this team is too young and does not have any playoff experience or anything. They need to be as sharp as they possibly can, especially going into that Week 18 game. I don't think they can afford to rest their players this week.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I mean, once you brought that point up, that makes a lot of sense to me. So it goes into everything that Doug Peterson's been saying. He said there's no such thing as a meaningless game. He says that they plan to play their guys, and for like the logic that you're bringing to it, it makes sense that they do. So, as far as I'm concerned, that does seem like the most likely outcome is they play all their guys. Yeah. I mean, if they are blowing the shit out of the Texans and it's like the fourth quarter and they're up by 2 or 3 touchdowns, then they probably stop and take the foot off the gas. But like,
yeah, for sure.
All right. You want to close out this stream with a little prize picks entry, perhaps?
Yeah, we got to run it up. So I'll go through my entries real quick. I mean, this is hockey, but all right.
Damn, boys got so many entries.
All right, we'll go a little bit bigger. All right. So if you're not in our Discord, make sure you join the Discord first and foremost, and then you go to the Prize Picks tab. And I mean, I already posted all these NHL plays if you want to tell the NHL, but this game has just started. 108, it's 109. So this game has just started. So we'll go to NFL. Rodgers bumped up like 20 yards. Think Lazard's still the same. Robinson bumped up like 15 yards. Delvin Cook bumped up 5 yards. Goff is bumped up like 35 yards. Amon-Ra bumped. Mike Evans still the same, but we have the 1,000-yard narrative in play. Mahomes bumped, and then Godwin was bumped in kind of a similar entry, just kind of doubling down on some of the plays early that I liked with this. So, yeah, this is pretty much what I need already, but all these plays have been bumped. I know you were on the same, but we can go to this NFL board and figure out what do we want to do here? A nice 4-leg or a 6-leg? I mean, it's my account. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, no, it's your account. So, I mean, if you're going to play it, it's up to you. But let me open up Prize Picks. I'll build this along with you here.
So, after, I watch a lot of other people's content and whatnot. So, now that from what I've heard, in order to be profitable long-term on 2 legs, you need 2 bets that are 58% chance or higher likely to hit in terms of 2 legs. So realistically, like 2 legs just aren't that good of bets on Prize Picks. Like they're top 3 for sure, but I think the best are 4 and 6 picks. Especially if you can get in lines before they're bumped. Or bump down lines that you think you can take advantage of. So, we do have some lines that haven't been bumped. And then I'll start with my first one, I'm taking Tyreek Hill over 70.5 yards.
Tyreek 70.5. Yeah, I mean that's
Tyreek right now. So I'll give the people a lesson into like the process.
sure.
So we go. Oh wait, where the fuck? I don't know what happened, but Tyreek Hill was juiced severely to the over of this line of 70.5. He's projected for 75 yards on Prize Picks, but with just the injuries that I outlined, Tyreek Hill over 70.5 yards. I think it's too low. They opened him up at like 89.5 and dropped him all the way down to 70. I mean, I'm just gonna hit the overcorrection in a spot where other books probably have that higher than 70.5. Yeah, so we have a site that we use to look at the lines. But let's see if I pull up like FanDuel real quick. Player prop, receiving props. They have FanDuel has Tyreek Hill at 74.5. Some other books have him at like 75.5. So you're getting a little bit of a discount there.
I like that one. Damn man, like a lot of the bets that I've already made this week are all super moved at this point.
Yeah, that's why you have to find new value.
I haven't looked this morning, so bear with me. I mean, what else do you like? Do you have anything that you like here?
Pull
up
I think
receptions.
Any bets, chat? Any bets you guys are on? I mean, I think Christian McCaffrey got moved. Yeah, he did. McCaffrey receiving yards was a value prop yesterday.
Yeah. Did Pickett get bumped? That was one as well.
Pickett did not get bumped. Pickett over 183.5 yards is a value prop right now.
Yeah.
Do I put hard-earned money on Kenny Pickett, though?
I see that. I don't know.
His line is 193.5 on Pinnacle. And he is a value prop, and it is a good matchup.
Yeah. I don't hate it. I certainly don't hate it. Travis Etienne's line is too low. If we really buy into this narrative, his line should be significantly higher, in my opinion. It's only 73.5.
73.5.
I feel like the reason that that's low is just like they're baking in potential like rest risk, but
potential risk like in game.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the reason it hasn't get bumped is because I think the public is probably worried about that too, so they're probably staying away. I mean, his line is actually lower on Pinnacle. It's 71.5, but he's minus 128 to go over. I mean, that's probably not a great bet, to be honest, if we're looking at it from an odds perspective.
Yeah, probably not. But I still don't mind that. The matchup is obviously very good with Travis Etienne. I think that if we're looking at some of the highest juice props available, we have Andy Dalton over half an interception, Juju under 5.5 catches, Curtis Samuel over 31.5 receiving yards is actually minus 153.
Is that his line?
31.5.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, minus 153. That's a smash.
Yeah, so Tyreek Hill, Curtis Samuel overs right now have not been bumped. I would assume Curtis gets bumped shortly. And then I'll go down the list. So we have Josh Allen over 1.5 passing touchdowns. And then we also have Diggs opened up at 67.5 yards.
Wow. This is like the for Monday Night Football, like the best Week 17 Monday Night Football game they've ever had in terms of like winning records, like combined wins for teams in the history of Monday Night Football. This is it. This game.
Coming off 3 dud performances.
I've already got several slips of this game stack built up. I mean, I like it.
You like Diggs?
I like Diggs.
I could go check his projection real quick and see. It's probably higher than 67.
I mean, I would assume that it probably is as well.
Diggs is projected for 79.12 yards on Roto Grinders. That is a total smash.
Yeah, he's minus 118 to go over that, but I feel like that's even low. Yeah, I like that a lot. Would you pair it with the Allen passing touchdowns? I got Allen yards in, but it got bumped already. So
yeah, Josh Allen over 1.5 touchdowns or Josh Allen over 253.5 passing.
See, I personally can't take the passing one because I have it in 2 slips at 240.5, so I can't double down on negative value. But I mean, God, 2 touchdowns for Allen. Like, I know they've been running it a little bit more lately, but goddamn.
2 tutties. All right. I mean, pair it up with Diggs. Maybe Diggs catches one of those.
Hell yeah.
So we got 4 here. We'll do 2 more.
What's have they moved Burrow's passing line yet?
I believe they did.
280. I mean, he's minus 114 to go over 283.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
okay.
It's okay.
I probably want to bet that. I think Diggs is a smash just based on projection. Curtis Samuel is a smash based on odds, and Josh Allen is odds. They're both minus 153 right now on Pinnacle. To go over. So I think that looks okay. And Tyreek Hill, I mean, that's just like he's going to see a ton of targets, and that's just a major overcorrection. So I'm very confident on the Tyreek Hill yards. I mean, I think this probably gets bumped up before tomorrow at lock. So I want to get that in.
No, I agree. I think the Curtis one is going to get bumped very soon as well.
So yesterday I did see a couple value props that I didn't lock in. Rachaad White was at over 2 catches, or was at 2 catches and not 3. Devonta Smith over 4.5 catches is still available. That's juiced a little bit. We have, I mean, Goff is minus 147 to go over 278.5, and we got him in at 245.5.
Yo, I mean, if anybody out there is not watching the Prize Picks video that comes out on our channel Tuesday, like I feel like I have a 90% rate of getting lines in before they get bumped. Do they hit all the time? Absolutely not. But we get it in good on this channel.
I mean, yeah, if they watched the Thursday night video, I went 6-0.
Yeah, so. that's crazy.
Yeah, so they've been making money. Godwin catches looks okay. I'm
looking at the odds on that because I have that on an underdog slip.
I think it's okay. Like I don't think it's anything great, but Juwan Johnson over 2.5 catches. Any interest there? I know that's a juiced line. Chris Godwin is minus 138 to go under 6.5 catches.
That's unfortunate.
So you indeed got it in bad based on Pinnacle odds.
I hate to hear that. That's just truly unfortunate.
Okay, he might get 7.
Oh, he needs to get 7. I need him to come through for me big time. Looking at Juwan's line here. Juwan Johnson minus 113 to go over 2.5.
None of my hockey guys are doing anything to start. Let's go. So we need 2 more. Really nothing in terms of receptions that I like, besides maybe Devonta Smith. But game script could be a concern there.
Definitely. I mean, Devonta Smith is minus 144, though. It's a good bet.
It's a good bet based on Pinnacle odds. But Pinnacle odds definitely are not the end all be all for sure.
No,
I will say that. These shits, them shits be losing just as much as they hit.
I mean,
we got to use our football brain.
I think I found one here. I found a decent one.
Alvin
Kamara's rushing line is 60.5. He's minus 140 to go under 57.5. So you're getting good value on the yardage and good odds on it. And he's barely practiced all week for personal reasons. And I mean, Eagles have a much better defensive front here. I mean, I think it's a good bet. I mean, God, dude, Kamara's been burning us every single week, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, he's missed it against good, or he's hit against good matchups and missed against bad matchups.
yeah.
So if we're going against that, what does Philadelphia do on the ground?
They're like, okay, I've got it right here. Rushing yards allowed. Philly is.
I mean, they're bottom half in the league.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a decent matchup for Kamara, but still, like, I do think there is some DMP risk there, though.
True.
But I'll include them. I like that. We need an under.
An under.
Yeah, no, I mean Kamara's under. We need an under in there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, no doubt.
That line is probably a little too high.
I mean, you could take the Pickett one for value. You could take.
Yeah, let's go Kenny Pickett. We'll take the value there. He is capable of throwing more than 184 yards. We had to put the $20 promo on it. 20 to win 500. Book it.
Bang.
That's a 6-pick slip.
That shit's hitting.
Gonna have to wait till Monday night, but
you're gonna have 4 greened out spots going to Monday night with a 2-leg sweat.
I think Tyreek Hill, Curtis Samuel is fire. Kamara, I mean, 57.5 on DK right now, juiced to the under on that. So you're getting a 3-yard discount on the road. Tough matchup. Potential negative game script as well. That looks okay. I think that's probably the one that I'm least confident in. Then Kenny Pickett, that's just a value. Like they won't be able to run on the Ravens. So
yeah, no, I mean I think the top 4 bets there are really strong, and then you're just trusting value and projections with those other bets. So
yeah. All right,
man.
That's a slip.
Looks good to me. That's the slip. That is the week 17 slate. We have one more live stream of the regular season next week. I think we'll be back at our regular time. No reason we shouldn't be. Finally, we'll be out of the holiday season on to 2023. And yeah, man, I mean, it's been a hell of a grind this year.
Yep. All right,
man. Shout out to the people. If you're still watching, we appreciate you. Drop a like if you are watching on replay. If you're watching live, subscribe to the channel. Almost at 750 subs on YouTube. So shout out to the people. Join the Discord. Be talking all morning tomorrow. And until next time, guys, we will see you for week 18 live stream. Have a great